got a few more people trickling in. There's snacks, and we've got Oreos, and I think pizza rolls. Someone got those. For those of you who do not know me, I am Catherine Lockner. I teach over in I teach in the 2D department over here, and I teach watercolor painting. And I also teach art history this quarter. So the show that you're looking at here is maybe a little bit deceiving at first, especially since I'm a watercolor teacher. I think a few of my students were a little bit shocked and disappointed when I told them that what we are looking at here are not real paintings, okay? These are not real watercolors. These are computer-generated images from photographs that I took. And the name of the show is Obsolete, and the concept here is, have computers made us obsolete? Us, meaning the artist. So let's get going. I'm not going to talk about each individual piece because I think they'll be kind of self-explanatory when I start talking, but I just want to walk you through the process here. On this wall, we have just a couple examples of what the photographs look like beforehand. So all of these images I took myself, except for the image in the back, which is of a man, Lee Sedol, which I will talk about. But this is, like, all of these are my own photographs. And I've run them through a watercolor algorithm. It's just an app. It's a commercially available app, which I will not name, because it's very good at what it does, and this is not an advertisement for that computer program. But you run it through this program, and you go from a fine photograph to what is pretty exceptional, I think. And the program does a couple of things. I'm not a programmer, but I think what it's doing is it takes the colors and it makes them brighter, makes them more vibrant, and it tries to decide when it's looking at these images what is important about the image. So here's our first conceptual point. A computer is trying to look at an image and decide what's important about that image. When it has a picture of a human, which I think is what it was made for. I think it was made for people to use on Facebook. I think that it was made for people to take the image of themselves, like their, what do you call that? Selfie, thank you. Take the selfie, run it through this thing, and make it look like this beautiful watercolor. So it can tell when it's looking at a human face. It kind of gets it. But when you run it through and it's not totally clear, like here, it figured it out okay. In this image, it couldn't really figure out what it was supposed to be looking at. So it gets a little fuzzy. So I had to go in and point out to it what it should be looking at. And I think it's making its decisions based on the contrast level, like how light and dark parts of the image are. So I did have to make I had to tweak a few of these images that are up here. But in general, it's kind of shocking how far computers have come in terms of making art. So what's my point here? My point is, this is not artificial intelligence, but we're getting to that point, okay? When artificial intelligence can make artwork. And you guys go, that sounds a little bit far-fetched. In September, Christie's auctioned the first artificial intelligence, it was a painting completely made by artificial intelligence. Christie's auctioned it. I couldn't figure out if it actually sold. It was horrible. It was horrible. It was like the most ugly thing. But my point here is that in this case, it's just a very smart program. It's a program that someone did a very good job of tweaking to make decisions like, this is how watercolor oozes into the paper in this really specific way, and it applies that. But I think it does so in a way that is almost impossible for me to accomplish, which is kind of depressing, which is maybe why I had the show. Anyway, so when I saw this for the first time, this was a few years ago, I'd started teaching watercolor here, and I saw this program, and I was devastated. I put something through and I was like, oh my God, this makes me obsolete, right? Like I don't have a place anymore. If this computer program can make these kinds of objects, and as you see, the objects up here are things that are either obsolete or becoming obsolete. Now I don't know where Les is. He got he got mad at me because I put a wet collodion camera. He's like, that's not obsolete. My friend makes pictures with that all the time. So so all of these objects are either obsolete or on their way to obsolescence, perhaps. Hopefully books, hopefully we have some room in our libraries for actual books still. And hopefully we have room on our walls for actual painters. I think that's kind of the point here, right? So I just want to make, so you can check these out, admire what the computer has done, say, hopefully, wow, she took some really darn good photographs before the computer took over. But I want to point out Lee Sedol, because this is what kind of inspired me. There's a video playing back there, and it's actually it's a Netflix documentary about something called AlphaGo, which is a computer program that Google made. It's an AI that defeated the world champion of the ancient Chinese game of Go. It defeated this man at Go, which should be impossible. They said, you shouldn't be able to make a computer program that can beat a human. And they did. And he was devastated. And there's an interview with him where he just apologizes. He's from South Korea. And he just looks like he's gonna just die up in front of all these people. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to humanity that I've lost to this computer program. And that's how I feel right now. I had to do this art show because I feel like I'm losing to a computer program. And this is not, like I said, this is not artificial intelligence. This is just a smart program. But if Christie's is auctioning off AI-made pieces, we have to decide, when do we start really coveting and loving things that are made by human hands? And when do we look at the pieces of artwork around us and say, is that just a stupid filter? Did someone just take that with their iPhone and then put a filter on that and go, wow, this is great, I'm going to put this on Facebook? When do we call it art? When do we say, that person took a good photo? Or, man, that's just a computer doing all the work. So, I just want you guys to think about that, because otherwise, I got nothing. So thanks for coming. Look around. We got to do questions. Please, yes?
Did you actually take photographs of these objects? Did you
did.
go to a museum?
I did. That's a great question. So some of these I just staged in my house, I had an oil lamp. So not totally obsolete. The power here goes out all the time, right? I was actually in Berlin in December, and they have this amazing tech museum there. And so they had all these objects that were obsolete. So an Atari video game console, which I totally love. They just had this on display in a museum. And I was like, that's so freaking awesome. And the cassette tapes, a lot of this stuff, that's Bodhi, so I took that picture a couple years ago. But most of this stuff was in a museum. Yeah, so that was how I was able to get the shots I took. Anybody else? I feel like this is maybe a little, it's very conceptual, yeah.
How much of the color can you control? So we're looking at Atari on Hot Pink. Is that how they displayed it in Berlin?
That's how they displayed it. So that's actually something, so can you kind of see here, this is just a little bit brighter than the original photograph. It wasn't quite that pink. It's like the program just turns the volume up a little bit on everything.
Can you control the color if you want it to be a different color?
Not really. It really does all of the decision making, basically. It's in order to get, I had to alter the original photograph in Photoshop if I needed to make changes. So some of these things, if you find them in a museum, they're going to have weird reflections from the glass and stuff because they're behind glass. So I did take some of that out for some of these images so that they would be more readable. But once you put the photograph in, it's just done. It hands it to you on a platter. It's amazing. It's so fun. I wish I could tell you the name of the program. Yes?
Do you put these out on special paper?
Thank you. Yes. Good question. So this is all printed on watercolor giclée paper. So it's got a texture to it, which makes it appear more like a real watercolor. That's kind of, it helps with the effect. It's got if you touched it, it would have, in fact, the glass broke on this one. Feel free to come over and you can touch it. It's fine. It's like I'm going to say that's intentional, but it's totally not. Any other questions?
Yes. Have you found that you are obsolete?
It's sort of still up in the air. I think because I was able to, because I think that I was so important to this process. I mean, this just took so much work. Now, I'm not, but I'm worried that I could be, definitely. I think by having this art show, I'm just trying to stave it off, like just trying to make myself less obsolete for longer. But I think I'm afraid that artists will become, as a group, obsolete. That's my feeling. Yeah.
A comment.
Yes,
I think
totally.
you're selling yourself short.
Thank you.
I think a computer can do fabulous things. These are all fabulous.
Thank you.
But you lose a bit of human creativity, the creativity a human has adding into the artwork. And I think you'll always, at some point, be able, or a true artist, I'm not an artist, but I think you'll be able to tell the difference.
I just love to hear that. I love it. I love to hear it. Because I really wanted to generate that kind of discussion to come in here. I hoped that people would walk in and just be like, there's something amiss with these paintings, and I don't know what it is. Yeah. Yeah.
I think with these paintings, you can tell that they're not quite real watercolor because they're too perfect.
Mm-hmm.
There's no messed up random drop of whatever in there. That when you move your paintbrush just so, you have a random spot of blue where it's supposed to be brown.
And Elizabeth is in my watercolor class. Lizzie's, and we talk about this in watercolor, that some of the best parts about watercolor are the mistakes, right? The things that you don't know are going to happen. And actually, happy accidents. You know, and honestly, if I can get art historical on you guys, there's different levels of artistic, like how much we put into our work. And if you go back to the Dada movement from, oh my God, like 100 years ago, seems like it should be more recent than that, but 100 years ago, Marcel Duchamp, he had this painting that was sandwiched between glass, basically. It's not even a painting. It's this piece of artwork sandwiched between glass. And he thought, there's something wrong with this. I don't know what's wrong with this piece of artwork, but there's something that I don't like about it. And he was shipping it to New York, I think, and in the shipment, it got dropped and shattered. And Marcel Duchamp said, you know what? I'm going to glue that all back together. So he painstakingly took all the little pieces of glass and he glued them all back together. And he said, it's finished. It's finished by chance. Chance has finished my artwork. And he put it up, and it's amazing. It's called the large glass. If you ever take a look at it, it's very strange. But there's something here, right? Like that I took a hand in this, and then some computer program took over. We've been discussing in art history, or for at least 100 years, we've been talking about where does the artist stop? Where does our hand stop as the artist? And maybe the answer is it's a tool, and it's okay. We can still use it. We just have to make sure that we always participate in some way, I think. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I have a friend who's a wonderful artist in nature, but and she developed macular degeneration, and it became very difficult for her to create her art by hand.
Yeah.
So she employs the computer program plus her creativity to come up with things that are even more beautiful than she ever did.
And so it's a tool, and it can be wonderful. Yeah, that's a really good point. Thank you.
I just heard a quote from somebody from a TED Talk probably, and it says, creativity is imagination it put into action. And I don't think that the computer will ever get the imagination part.
Hope so. I hope so, but you guys should go home and Google it, though. Go look at some of this stuff, because it's weird. The one that they sold at Christie's, hopefully, or maybe didn't, is just like this hand that's like surrealistically reaching out of the, it's weird. It's horrible. It's awful. I saw you raise your hand, yeah.
I just wondered if you took one of these objects, did your own watercolor, and then put it through the computer and put the two side by side just to see.
I haven't done it. I'm too scared. I also didn't ever try to replicate the same image. You notice I did not put an image of my painting right next to it, because comparison is the thief of joy, as they say. But I did do I did one watercolor of myself looking very depressed. It's over there, standing on that. It's yes, me looking very sad. But it's my only watercolor in the show, because I didn't want to do that comparison thing too much, for fear that those colors are so bright and vibrant and they would just run right over what I was able to do. Because you can't really, most of these colors you can't actually make with the real pigments that we have. Yeah.
So I think that as the computer gets more and more smarter, then the artist can be more and more valuable, because now when things are done by hand, we appreciate it more. Done by machine, 1,000 of them, not so valuable.
I mean, at the very least, there are these connoisseurs who are like, I need to keep my record collection, or my books, I have a library. I mean, maybe some connoisseur will be like, I want those watercolors that were done by a human. Exactly. In my day, they used to do watercolors with their hands. Yeah.
I personally believe Catherine Lockner paintings are way better than a computer could ever do.
Thanks. Okay. You guys. Thanks so much for coming, you guys. I'll be here if you want to ask me any more questions, and take a look around. I really appreciate you coming. Okay. Oh, yeah. Thanks. It was fun.